Greetings, everyone. Very nice to be with you today. Now we're going to explore some questions and answers that you all have submitted. Here's our first question. Many philosophies, religions, and spiritual teachings explain the reason for human suffering. What does the order say about human suffering, and how can we effectively deal with it? Does the order agree with the law of attraction? The readings and practices are helpful, but is protection achievable, or must constant life problems, that is, human suffering, be realized for some unknown good? Regarding the law of attraction, the Rosicrucian teachings state very clearly that energy follows thought. So we attract things to us through our thoughts. Regarding suffering, an excellent example, an excellent model regarding how to approach suffering for me is the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. And he is quoted in many of our monographs. He was he was a Stoic. That was his belief system. He was a Stoic, and he wrote a journal. And after his death, his personal journal was made into a book of meditations. And he wrote in this, and Marcus Aurelius experienced incredible challenges in his life. Just a lot of challenges. And he wrote, "A person who knows how to suffer suffers less. A person who knows how to suffer suffers less. Feel your pain and then decide what you want to do with it. Do you want to hold on to it?" So we can see this in anything that we may consider unpleasant or that we suffer from. Many things are relative. For example, in the middle of summer, if the temperature drops to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, we might think, oh my gosh, I'm freezing. But if the same thing happened in February, we might think that 40 degrees is great. So things are relative. Think about how you feel right now. Just consider your inner state. Maybe there's been a time in your life in the past that you felt much worse, and you may be able to feel profoundly grateful for the way that you feel right now. Some people have endured unspeakable hardships, yet they didn't hold on to their suffering. And again, the monographs don't tell us not to suffer, not to grieve. It's once we experience that, do we want to hold on to it? So here are three extraordinary examples to me of individuals who endured great hardship and did not appear to hold on to suffering. And the first is my favorite American hero, and this is Harriet Tubman. She was born as an enslaved person. She managed to escape, and she returned to Maryland 13 times after her escape to help other enslaved people. So can you imagine? You're an enslaved person. She found her freedom, and then she went back 13 times to help free other people. She also served as an agent and a leader during the Civil War, and she became a symbol of the abolition movement. Another example for me is Helen Keller. She became both deaf and blind before her second birthday. And many of us know the story of Helen Keller. She learned to read and write, which still baffles me how that could be possible at all. She became the first deaf-blind person to gain a bachelor's degree. She campaigned on issues of social welfare, women's suffrage, disability rights, and impressed many people with her fortitude and with the force of her personality. Another person who is an incredible example for me is Bethany Hamilton. When she was 13 years old, she was a surfer, and a shark bit her left arm off during a surfing accident. And so this happened to a 13-year-old girl, and within a month, she was back on a surfboard and continued to practice. And 2 years later, she was able to win first place in the Explorer Women's Division of the NSSA National Championships. So I think these are good examples of people who faced extraordinary challenges and experienced them, I'm sure, and chose not to hold on to them as suffering. An 8th degree monograph says, in absolute terms, it is true that human beings are subject to a cosmic destiny which cannot be evaded. We gradually evolve toward an ultimate purpose determined since the beginning of time by the divine intelligence. This purpose consists of attaining perfection and reintegrating with our original state. However, human beings are free to think, speak, or act as they wish. Therefore, our life is a reflection of our own behavior and of the resulting karma, which is both positive and negative. Our destiny, in the mystical sense of the word, is not pre-established. From the Rosicrucian viewpoint, it is the karmic result of what we constantly think, say, and do. On the basis of this principle, we are the makers of our own destiny, from incarnation to incarnation, and our fate corresponds to our merits. So repeating the first part of this question, the readings and practices are helpful, but is protection achievable? Or must constant life problems, that is human suffering, be realized for some unknown good? Like, do we need to suffer for a reason? Must we suffer in order to grow? The monographs tell us that we incarnate into the family and conditions that will provide the greatest lesson for our spiritual growth. So our soul personality chooses our family, which of course then chooses the nation that we're born into. We choose our gender, our race. So as challenging as it is to consider, if we're born into a family with an abusive person, of course, this is very, very painful. And perhaps from this, you have learned to be especially kind or gentle, or maybe it helped you to help someone else who was experiencing abuse. Here's our next question. I have found it very difficult to remain in a meditative state lately, and thoughts rush across my mind. It was never like this in my younger years. How do I understand and change this? There's also a very noisy bypass nearby. So if you live someplace that's noisy, you can wear earplugs or headphones, and we can listen to music for relaxation, but for meditation, we're not encouraged to listen to music on headphones, but it helps to muffle the sound. We can minimize all distractions, sounds, smells, movement around us. We can create our sanctum, and this quiet place helps us to go deeper. I'm sure all of you who go to your sanctum know that as soon as you enter the place, you can feel your whole system start to settle. So it settles sooner, and in my experience, I'm able to go deeper. And you don't have to have a whole room that is your sanctum. Even if you just have a corner of a room that you just used for your mystical work, that can set the right conditions for you to have a sanctum. We've talked about this before. Another way that can help us prepare for meditation and to go deeper into meditation is, of all the things, to pull on our earlobes. The vagal nerve helps to settle our autonomic nervous system, and it has these peripheral nerves that go to our earlobe, and we can just tug down on our earlobe, and it helps to tone the two vagal nerves that start up in our brain. They go through our throat and they go down to the gut area. We can also focus on our breath, and we've practiced this meditation many times. When we focus on our breath, it communicates to our autonomic nervous system that everything is okay. So the autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for involuntary functions such as our circulation and our respiration, it doesn't have to escalate anything. It's not sensing any threats. So the autonomic nervous system, when it senses just normal breathing, it doesn't feel the need to increase our heart rate, our respiration, doesn't dilate our eyes. So very simple breathing techniques help us to go into a meditative state. And we'll do these in just a moment. Also, it's very important that we don't fight thoughts that come to our mind when we're trying to meditate, because they will win. If you get into a fight with your thoughts that occur while you're meditating, you are not going to win. A very effective way to settle thoughts down while we're meditating is to mentally say thinking. So we're focusing on our breath, we're nice and relaxed, and some thoughts come in and we realize, oh, wow, I have all these thoughts. Just acknowledge that. Mentally just say thinking. And then the thoughts have been recognized, focus on your breath again, and it helps you to go within again. So we're going to practice this for just a few minutes. It's very simple to go into a meditative state by focusing on our breath. So we're going to do that exercise now. And again, minimize distractions around you. If you can find a quiet place. And we'll start by just pulling on those earlobes. So just gently tug down, toning the vagal nerves very gently. Then sit comfortably. Have your spine straight but not rigid. This keeps the energy free to flow up and down the spine. It also keeps the ribs from squishing the organs and psychic centers that are right under the rib cage. We have the liver and the pancreas and the stomach, and just a nice, gentle, straight posture. Now take 3 deep breaths, becoming more relaxed with each exhalation. Now, focus on your breath as it goes in and out of your nostrils. Just feel the air going in and out of your nostrils. If your mind wanders, no problem. Just gently bring your awareness back to the air going in and out of your nostrils. And if you do find that you're having a lot of thoughts, just say to yourself silently, thinking, and then go back to feeling the air going in and out of your nostrils. When you're ready, open your eyes. Just be aware of your inner state. See if you can feel your heartbeat. Be aware of your rate of breathing. The Rosicrucian Order's International Research Council did research on this method of breathing some years ago and found that the effects of focusing on our breath so simply, just like we did, begin after just 2 minutes. After just 2 minutes, it starts to help to lower our pulse, our respiration has an effect. And so anytime we may be feeling like we could use a little more tranquility or calmness or go a little deeper, we can just focus on our breath. And this does help to prepare us for other meditations. It can prepare us for going into our sanctum, or if you're near an affiliated body, when you're waiting to enter the temple, just sit for a few moments and focus on your breath. You may find that helpful to put you in a meditative state. Here's our next question. Today in the news and on social media, the world seems to be in a chaotic state. Some religious movements say it points to apocalyptic times. What is the Rosicrucian viewpoint on apocalyptic prophecies and signs as taught by most religious movements? Well, as I think most of you know, the Rosicrucian Order is not a religious movement or a religious organization. And in 2014, we published a Rosicrucian manifesto called the Appelatio Fraternitatis Rosicrucis. And this is an appeal. Appellatio means appeal. And it's appeal for more humanism, spirituality, and taking care of the environment. So it describes the state of the world and what we can do about it. And it says specifically, we are not pessimistic, not even apocalyptic about the future. Rosicrucians try to take a very practical perspective on events in the world, especially related to what we as individuals can do, what actions we can take to contribute to the betterment of the situation. Here's what it says at the end of that Rosicrucian manifesto. And you can find this online. It's on rosicrucian.org under text, the Appelatio Fraternitatis Rosicrucis. In the conclusion, it says, we do indeed believe that it has become urgent for us to move in a spiritual, humanistic, and ecological direction in terms of our individual and collective behavior. But if a higher priority was to be given, it would be in favor of taking care of the environment. Indeed, if humanity succeeds in finding a long-term solution to the social and economic problems encountered by it, but if in parallel, Earth has become uninhabitable or difficult to live on for the vast majority of its inhabitants, what is the point? And what pleasure can be gained from living there? On this subject, those who govern the countries and nations have a huge responsibility in that they have the power to make decisions and ensure they are carried out. If the people lose interest in taking care of the environment and do nothing at their level to preserve nature, it is clear that the situation will continue to get worse and future generations will inherit a planet that is only a shadow of its former self. Then the final paragraphs say, 4 centuries after the Fama Fraternitatis, which was published in 1614, and 13 years after the Positio, we felt it was necessary to echo once more our own particular concerns with regard to humanity. Indeed, time goes by, but the future that is emerging decade by decade, year by year, is still a cause for concern. The, quote, crisis, as it is commonly called, appears to have become firmly entrenched in many countries. Nonetheless, we are not pessimistic about the future. We are optimistic about the future. Below the surface, the troubled times that we are crossing constitute a necessary transition, which should enable humanity to transcend itself and be reborn. Then it says, the Apollatio is not intended for the elite, but for all those people who learn of its publication and take the time to read it. Some will find it rather alarmist, while others will consider it to be somewhat utopian. It is certainly neither dogmatic nor ideological. Through it, we simply want to express ideas that are neither new nor original in themselves, particularly for Rosicrucians, but that, in our view, call more than ever for careful thought. In fact, we wish to send out an appeal for spirituality, humanism, and taking care of the environment, which for us are the conditions for humanity to regenerate on all planes and find the happiness it desires. Here is our next question. The media and some of the world's scientists are predicting that AI, artificial intelligence, may have more influence on our lives than we expected. Please, could you share your thoughts with us? So as part of the 108-year commemoration in New York City, when the Imperator and all the Grand Masters were in New York, we held a board meeting and we discussed this among other subjects. So artificial intelligence is already influencing us. Whether you are aware of it or not, it's influencing every individual a great deal. And the main thing that we can do to make this a positive technology is to be aware. We can educate ourselves on what artificial intelligence is. We can develop our critical thinking skills so we realize the source of information we may be exposed to. We can consider how AI can be used ethically. For example, we can read stories about people using AI for good. And in December, the magazine Scientific American published 10 things that artificial intelligence is, 10 areas in which artificial intelligence is being used for the good. And just a few of them are AI is being used to monitor and make decisions about climate change. Researchers have been using AI to visualize the future effects of floods and wildfires, to improve climate decision-making, to monitor forest, and to share data with each other, and to evaluate data. AI is also used to diagnose life-threatening health problems. And one example is detecting sepsis in hospitals, which is one of the leading causes of death once you enter a hospital. So AI is being used to track sepsis, contagious sepsis, which is in hospitals. It can also be used to predict viruses with pandemic potential, and it can be used to protect biodiversity. It's amazing what artificial intelligence can do. One way in which it's being used is facial recognition of mountain lions. So it helps researchers monitor mountain lions without disturbing them. They're very solitary animals. So if you get too close, it disturbs their routine and you can't monitor it because you've disrupted it. But with AI, facial recognition can monitor when it's a mountain lion that goes past a certain area. All right, our next question. I would love to know the current status of the work on the Alchemy Museum at Rosicrucian Park. Well, this is so exciting. We are on schedule to open the Alchemy Museum at Rosicrucian Park in the spring of 2025. We have been very actively involved in creating the Alchemy Museum. We're working with a team of architects and designers and engineers. At certain times, our board of directors is meeting every week on this project, and depending on where we are in the process, maybe we meet once a month or so, but we're very actively proceeding. And again, this is going to be the first Alchemy Museum in the United States. It's going to be the largest Alchemy Museum. It will be housed in the building that was constructed in 1934 to be the Rosicrucian University International Building. So we're renovating and updating that building. And there's so many superlatives about this Alchemy Museum. One thing I can say with full confidence is it is going to be the most spectacular museum of any type in the world. So I can't give you the details because we don't want a spoiler where we want to invite you to come in person and experience this transformative, engaging museum that we're creating at Rosicrucian Park for all of you and for future generations. And if you're interested in being part of this exciting project, you're welcome to make a donation. If you go to rosicrucian.org, there's a page that has a drop down of different projects that you can help support and help manifest. And you can choose the Alchemy Museum if you'd like to be a part of it. All right, and we have a question concerning the thoracic ganglion 10th and 11th. It is kind of hard to place the 3 designated fingers behind the back to reach the sympathetic chain. I know they are at the level of the lower point of the sternum in comparison with the front of the body. Is it possible during the teleconference to show how to do so? So the simple response is to do your best. We can't reach every place on our spine. Just do your best. And for this particular area, you don't have to go around this way. You can come from behind and also visualize the area that you're stimulating. So if you are trying to stimulate an area on your spine that you can't reach, just focus your attention on it. The Sixth Temple degree explores healing techniques for ourselves and others. And we learn techniques. We place our fingers in a certain position, and then we put it on one side of our spine or the other, depending on the result that we want. And we place our fingers at a different point along the spine, depending on the area that we want to treat. And we're using the energy that comes through our hands on the spine to stimulate those areas. And our thoughts also contribute to stimulating the areas. So the first is just do your best. Again, you can just reach behind like this. There's a tiny spot that, well, I can almost reach every spot, but there are some spots that are definitely hard to reach, and just get as close as you can. And then visualize that area is receiving, that it's receptive to the energy and information that you're sending to it. So that concludes our questions and answers for this teleconference. Thank you so much for being here today.